Don Rickles was born Donald J. Rickles on May 8, 1926 in Queens, New York. He was the source of the greatest amount of hatred that Don Rickles ever felt toward anyone. In addition to growing up in the Jackson Heights neighborhood, Rickles was raised in a Jewish family and developed a sharp wit and quick tongue at an early age, characteristics that would later define his career. Rickles emerged from humble beginnings to become one of the most legendary comedians and actors of the 20th century. His father, Max Rickles, worked as an insurance agent, and his mother, Etta, was a housewife. Both of his parents adored him and recognized his talent for humor even when he was a young child. After completing his high school education, Rickles went on to attend the American Academy of Dramatic Arts for a short period of time. His initial intention was to pursue a career in acting that was more serious. Through his naturally fast-paced humor and sharp observational skills, he gradually steered himself toward a different path, which was the world of stand-up comedy. His dream was to become a dramatic actor on Broadway or in Hollywood, but his passion for stand-up comedy turned him away from that dream. Rickles came back to his home country with a revitalized sense of purpose after serving in the United States Navy during World War II. During that time, he was a seaman aboard the USS Cyrene, which conducted operations in the Pacific Theater. In the beginning, he had a difficult time finding his footing, just like many other veterans of his generation did. However, his natural charm and charisma drew him toward the entertainment industry. Beginning in the early 1950s, he started making appearances in nightclubs. At first, he was a struggling actor who would use comedy as filler material between lines from his performance. When Rickles realized that audiences responded better to his quick insults than to his serious attempts at drama, he shifted his focus entirely to comedy. The decision he made would alter the course of his life irrevocably and leave an indelible mark on the entertainment industry permanently. In a short amount of time, Rickles established a distinct place for himself in the world of comedy. In contrast to the majority of stand-up comedians of the time, who relied on telling structured jokes or humorous anecdotes, Rickles was a pioneer in the development of an entirely modern approach. A comedy of insults immediately began making fun of members of the audience, regardless of their background, profession, or social status, as soon as they stepped onto the stage. His sharp tongue spared no one, from Hollywood celebrities to everyday fans, and he earned a reputation as the man who could roast anyone and still be loved for it. His tongue touched everyone, from Hollywood celebrities to everyday fans. In spite of the fact that his words were often biting, they were always delivered with a sense of good-natured humor and an underlying affection for the recipient. His nickname, Mr. Warmth, was an affectionate irony that captured this fact. The fact that Frank Sinatra, one of the most famous people in the world, came to see Rickles perform at one of his shows in Miami was a particularly significant event in the early stages of his career. Rickles boldly insulted Sinatra from the stage, making jokes about his power and influence, in contrast to the majority of performers who would have treated Sinatra with respect. Sinatra, rather than taking offense, became enchanted by Rickles and became one of his most ardent supporters. She gave Rickles the opportunity to meet other celebrities and helped him solidify his position among the most prominent figures in Hollywood. Through this friendship, Rickles was able to not only advance his career, but also demonstrate his bravery and self-assurance, qualities that contributed to the irresistible performance of his comedy. Soon after, Rickles became a regular on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, as well as other variety shows such as the Dean Martin Celebrity Roasts. During these shows, his lightning-fast insults became the highlight of the evening. Rickles was capable of performing a wide range of roles, despite the fact that stand-up comedy was the foundation of his career. Among the films in which he appeared were Run Silent, Run Deep, which was released in 1958, and films starring Burt Lancaster and Clark Gable. In later comedic films such as Kelly's Heroes, which was released in 1970 and starred Clint Eastwood. As a performer, he demonstrated his versatility by being able to adapt to both comedic and serious roles through his versatility. On his own television sitcom, CPO Sharkey, which he starred in during the 1970s, he was able to channel his sarcastic humor and biting remarks into the role of a United States Department of Defense officer, the Chief Petty Officer of the Navy. Additionally, he became a frequent guest on talk shows, where he was admired for his unpredictability and his ability to make even the most serious host burst out laughing. Over the course of the 1990s and 2000s, Rickles' career experienced a resurgence, in part because of his role as the voice of Mr. Potato Head in Pixar's groundbreaking Toy Story franchise. His work in animated films, in which his signature sarcasm was perfectly captured in the character, brought him to the attention of an entirely new generation of fans before they were even aware of him. He also continued to tour well into his 80s, performing in Las Vegas, Atlantic City, and all over the United States, drawing audiences who adored his unapologetically old-school style of comedy. He was able to retain his popularity throughout his entire career. Rickles, in contrast to many other performers of his era, never altered his act in order to accommodate contemporary sensibilities. As an alternative, he had faith that his audience would comprehend that the humor he shared originated from a place of affection rather than malice. On March 14, 1965, Don Rickles tied the knot with Barbara Sklar, a resident of Philadelphia. This union would go on to become one of the most enduring and defining aspects of his personal life. Rickles, who had built a reputation as the merchant of venom on stage and television for his biting, no-holds-barred comedic insults, frequently revealed a much softer side when speaking of Barbara. This was because Rickles was known for his ability to insult Barbara in comedy. A significant number of his co-workers regarded their marriage as a stabilizing force, which provided him with a sense of stability in a world where fame, ego, and career pressures frequently cause relationships to fail. An open admission had been made by Rickles that the process of finding love had been difficult for him. Even though he was a rising star in the comedy circuit, he had a difficult time finding a romantic partner when he was in his 20s and 30s. His sharp wit and sarcastic edge, which audiences adored, frequently worked against him in intimate settings, leaving potential partners either intimidated or unimpressed. His audience adored him. At the time that he met Barbara, he had already reached the age of 38 and was a bachelor. His friends had begun to question whether or not he would ever enter into a committed relationship. His agent was the one who brought them together, and it was a chance encounter that would alter the path that Rickles' life would take ever since. In an ironic turn of events, Rickles admitted that the reason he was attracted to Barbara was because she was unable to laugh at his jokes, or perhaps she was unwilling to do so. His sense of humor did not impress her in the same way that it did a great number of other people who hung on his every wisecrack, and he was completely captivated by this unexpected response. According to Rickles, Barbara's grounded nature and quiet strength stood in stark contrast to the superficiality of show business. As a result, she was the ideal partner for a man whose life was otherwise dominated by the chaos of the entertainment industry. The couple went on to have 2 children, Mindy and Larry, both of whom have established themselves in the entertainment industry, albeit in different ways. Mindy and Larry both have their own unique place in the industry. Mindy Rickles pursued a career in acting, following in her father's footsteps in front of the camera. However, she did so in a significantly different manner and with her own unique approach. In the meantime, Larry Rickles discovered his true calling as a producer working behind the scenes. Larry Rickles' life was cut tragically short when he passed away at the age of 41 from pneumonia. This was a loss that the Rickles family will struggle to come to terms with. The news of his passing left Don and Barbara, who had always been devoted parents, in a state of deeply profound shock. Because Rickles had spent his entire life making other people laugh, the pain of losing a son remained one of the most profound sorrows he had ever experienced. It served as a reminder of the precarious nature of life, even in the midst of immense fame and success. It was the joys of family life that remained at the center of Rickles' heart, despite the tragedies that had occurred. In his autobiography, he mentioned that his grandchildren, Ethan and Harrison Mann, provided him with a new and unexpected perspective on his professional life. His grandchildren were much more impressed by something much simpler, his voice role as Mr. Potato Head in the Toy Story film series. While adults admired his decades-long body of work, his countless late-night appearances, and his groundbreaking influence on comedy, his grandchildren were much more impressed by something much simpler. To them, their grandfather was not the legendary insult comedian who had competed with Frank Sinatra or entertained presidents. He was not even their grandfather. During their childhood, he was the cherished toy that they came to associate with one of the most famous animated films. This generational divide provided Rickles with a source of humor and joy, and he frequently joked that all of his years of labor in the comedy industry were overshadowed by a talking plastic potato. He was never alone. His wife of more than half a century, Barbara, was there for him through it all. The ups and downs of Hollywood life, the difficulties of parenting, and the personal struggles that come with long careers in the spotlight were all things that their marriage was able to endure successfully. Friends of the couple frequently remarked on the genuine expressions of affection and respect that characterized their relationship, which was characterized as a partnership built on love, humor, and loyalty. In the year 2021, on March 14th, exactly 56 years to the day after their wedding, Barbara passed away from non-Hodgkin lymphoma. This event felt like a poetic and bittersweet conclusion to their journey together. Their story continued to be intertwined even after they had passed away, as evidenced by the symmetry of the date, which highlighted the depth of their connection. When it came to Don Rickles, the self-proclaimed merchant of venom, there were very few people in the entertainment industry that he genuinely disliked. He was one of those people. His harsh insults and razor-sharp barbs were delivered with a wink and a smile the majority of the time, with the intention of entertaining and disarming rather than wounding. On the other hand, according to those who knew him best, there was one actor who seemed to trigger something deeper and more personal in Rickles than his typical brand of insult comedy ever suggested. That actor was Denzel Washington. Rickles, who had spent decades making fun of everyone from Frank Sinatra to Ronald Reagan, was said to have found Washington not only difficult to warm up to, but also a man whose presence irritated him in ways that no other celebrity had ever been able to do. There was more to Rickles' dislike of Washington than just a simple personality clash between the two of them. Rickles worked best in environments where there was an abundance of laughter, where his quick wit and self-deprecation enabled him to bring people down, only to bring them back up through the laughter that they shared with one another. Washington, on the other hand, carried himself with a level of seriousness, poise, and intensity that Rickles found to be almost impossible to penetrate. Washington was notorious for his stoic demeanor, and he rarely gave Rickles the satisfaction of a smirk. This was in contrast to the majority of other celebrities, especially those who laughed along with Rickles' insults, regardless of how cutting they were. Washington's stone-faced silence felt to Rickles like the ultimate rejection of his comedic style. Rickles lives for the reaction as much as the joke itself, and Washington's silence felt like the ultimate rejection. It did not help that Washington had a reputation in Hollywood that was characterized by commanding respect, authority, and gravitas. As an actor, he was regarded as someone who elevated every role that he played. He was a performer who exuded an air of dignity and discipline wherever he went. Rickles, on the other hand, was a comic who thrived on disruption, embarrassment, and discomfort. He was a creature of chaos. As a result of the collision between their personal styles and their public personas, an oil and water dynamic was created. Despite the fact that Rickles almost always managed to find a way to charm or tease even the most difficult personalities, he was unable to communicate effectively with Washington. Even more than he ever admitted in public, it was something that gnawed at him. Through the years, Rickles frequently employed humor as a means of concealing his frustrations. Rickles' tone changed whenever Washington's name was mentioned in conversation, according to those who were privy to the information. There was a sharpness in his voice, a dismissive edge that was even uncharacteristic for him. Instead of the playful venom that he reserved for his Hollywood friends, he had a voice that was sharp. During a private conversation, Rickles was said to have said, "I'll tell you who doesn't laugh." Denzel Washington is the kind of person who refuses to laugh even if you pay him. Mount Rushmore appears to be moving thanks to his sculpting skills. As a comedian who had built his entire career on the ability to make people laugh in the most improbable of circumstances, Washington's inaccessibility was not only a personal annoyance, but also a professional affront. The hostility that Rickles displayed toward Washington revealed, in some respects, just as much about Rickles himself as it did about Washington. Rickles utilized comedy as a means of establishing connections with others, a means of removing barriers, and a means of removing pretense. It didn't feel like a rejection of his jokes when someone resisted his approach. Rather, it felt like a rejection of him as a person. Therefore, despite the fact that Rickles was able to shrug off a large number of hecklers, critics, or parties who were offended throughout his lengthy career, he was unable to shrug off Washington's refusal to play along. This quiet battle of wills, Rickles' unrelenting need to draw a laugh, and Washington's equal determination to maintain his dignity, created a unique tension that caused Rickles to bristle whenever Washington's name was mentioned. Washington's willingness to maintain his dignity was also a contributing factor. Therefore, despite the fact that Don Rickles was equally as ferocious when he was roasting presidents, celebrities, and friends, there was something completely different about the way he regarded Denzel Washington. According to Rickles, Washington was the one mountain that he would never be able to climb, and the one member of the audience that he would never be able to break. And for a man whose entire life was devoted to laughter, that one failure stood out more prominently than any of his successes throughout his entire life. Don Rickles, who was 90 years old when he passed away on April 6, 2017, at his home in Century City, Los Angeles, was one of the most well-known and influential figures in the entertainment industry. His passing occurred on April 6. It was determined that kidney failure was the cause of his passing, a condition that had gradually caused him to become weaker in his final days. On the other hand, did not obscure the vitality and sharp wit that had characterized him for such a significant number of decades. Rickles had lived a long and extraordinary life, one that coincided with the entirety of a period in the history of American comedy. The passing of this individual marked the end of an era in which humor that was quick-witted and did not hold back was delivered with a personal touch, which had the ability to make audiences laugh while still making them feel like they were a part of the joke. At the time of his passing, tributes came pouring in from all corners of the entertainment industry. Comedians, actors, directors, and fans expressed their admiration for his groundbreaking career, as well as their sorrow at the loss of a man who had been both a pioneer and a friend to a great number of people. The final years of Rickles' life were spent in the company of his family and in the conveniences of his home in Century City, a neighborhood in Los Angeles where he had resided for many years. Century City, which is well known for its sophistication and close proximity to the center of Hollywood, was an appropriate location for Rickles to call home because it reflected both his status in the entertainment industry and his lifelong connection to the city that had been the driving force behind his career. In spite of the fact that he had slowed down significantly in his later years, Rickles continued to be active well into his 80s by participating in interviews, making television appearances, and doing voice work. This demonstrates that his passion for performing never truly diminished. Even after he retired, he was still considered to be one of the most enduring legends in the history of comedy, and his razor-sharp sense of humor never left him, even as his health deteriorated. After his passing, Rickles was laid to rest at Mount Sinai Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. This cemetery is well known for being the final resting place of a number of influential figures in the Jewish community and the entertainment industry. The cemetery, which is situated in the Hollywood Hills, is a serene memorial site that allows families, friends, and admirers to pay their respects to the deceased. The fact that Rickles was laid to rest there, alongside other icons of the entertainment industry, is a representation of the enduring role he played in the cultural fabric of the United States during his lifetime. The grave of the deceased became not only a place of mourning for his family, friends, and the generations of fans who followed his career, but also a place of celebration. An establishment dedicated to commemorating the life of a man whose sense of humor and personality left an indelible mark on the world of comedy and popular culture. Additionally, the remarkable longevity of Rickles' career was highlighted by the fact that he passed away at the age of 90. Few entertainers have maintained their relevance for such a long period of time, adapting over the course of decades to the development of comedy while still remaining true to his own distinctive voice. From the smoky nightclubs of the 1950s to late-night talk shows, Las Vegas stages, film sets, and animated feature films, he maintained a presence that spanned multiple generations of audiences. He was at the forefront of the entertainment industry. As a result, his passing was not only the loss of a single individual, but it also marked the conclusion of a chapter in the history of the entertainment industry. A number of tributes were paid to him as the news of his passing spread. These tributes highlighted his talent for connecting with people, his fearless approach to comedy, and his role as a beloved friend and family man who served behind the scenes.